Hey everybody, welcome to the American Prepping Academy. Today we are going to talk about how to find members for your prepper group. I think that finding members for a group is one of the most difficult things to do if you don't have a group of pre-existing friends and family members or maybe coworkers that are already like-minded. Finding new people is really difficult because you have this whole thing where you have to balance OPSEC and with trying to let people know that you're a prepper and that kind of thing. And so what I have found throughout the years is that the best places to find like-minded people are in groups or organizations where preppers tend to naturally gravitate towards. And so I've got about 20 or so items here that I'll go through with you, different kinds of places and groups and activities and things like that where you could go out and join these groups and find other preppers. So before we get started though, we probably want to take a look at what is a prepper group. And I think in my estimation there is four basic categories. You've got your formal prepper group where you're likely to have it organized into like a paramilitary like structure with a chain of command, a rank structure, and these are going to be similar in nature to like a militia, but more solely focused on defending an area or community and maintaining a sense of normalcy within their area. Then you've got the informal prepper group, and these are the ones that I actually kind of prefer, which is kind of a loose association of like-minded people who will come together and assist one another in a disaster. And these people, this may be made up of family members, friends, associates, and those kinds of things. Excuse me. Then you've got bug-out prepper groups, and these are people who are planning to leave an area and go to a pre-established location together, and maybe they have already pre-positioned supplies, purchased land, those kinds of things. Then you've got the bug-in prepper groups, and those are people who are planning to stay in an area, kind of ride it out, ride out the disaster where they currently live, unless they're forced to move to another location. And you can also have crossovers in each one of these categories for the most part. But that's just kind of giving a basic idea of what we're talking about when we talk about prepper groups. All right. So the goal of this lesson is to provide you with some ideas about places that you can look to find like-minded people who may already be into preparedness, or at least have a tendency towards being more self-reliant and being involved in prepper kinds of activities. Now, like I said earlier, this is a difficult task, and it's going to require that you get out and take part in various types of different activities. But the cool thing is that while you're doing these activities, you're actually going to be practicing some skills and learning some things that are going to help you in your prepping journey. All these areas that are listed in this lesson are places, groups, clubs that many preppers already frequent. But again, like I said, it's up to you to get out there and make those human connections to identify who the right people are and who are going to be the best fit for your group, because it is extremely personality dependent. Okay, you don't just want to go after people because they have the skill, they're a doctor or whatever, and if they're an asshole or something, you don't want those people in your group. If they don't get along with people well and those kinds of things, you don't want them in your group. So you really have to get to know them first and then kind of, invite them into the circle, into the fold, so to speak. All right, so the first one is a gardening club. And I've got some links in pretty much each one of these slides. I've got links to these different organizations where you can go to find local chapters in your area. And just to learn more about the organization in general so that you can find out if it's a good fit for you and what you like to do and those kinds of things. So the Gardening Club, you've got the National Gardening Club, the Gardening Club of America, and you can also go through and get a Master Gardener certification, which would also make you obviously a better prepper, but it would make you more what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of your resume, your prepper resume would be better. And so that is something you can do. You can also trade seeds with these people that are in these groups, that you meet through the organization. And the good benefit here too is that most gardeners also get into canning and long-term food preparation, and those kinds of things. So gardening groups could be a great low-threat way, to get involved. All right, shooting ranges are another one. Get involved in some kind of a shooting organization, and all these organizations, they have new members all the time, and they expect you to start out at the low level and then work your way up. So you don't have to be an expert shooter already. But some of the good organizations that are out there that are filled with preppers are the United States Practical Shooting Association, or USPSA, the International Defensive Pistol Association, or IDPA. Then we've got the National Shooting Sports Foundation, the National Rifle Association, the National Sporting Clays Association, that's a shotgunning group, and the Amateur Trap Shooting Association, and then the National Skeet Shooting Association. So if you just go out to your local clubs and you can take a look at these different links, and you can find out when there are official shoots. And you can just go out to that shoot and say, hey, I'd like to become a member of USPSA, and I'd like to take part in the shoot. I'm brand new. Tell me, how do I do this? And just try to take on the attitude that you want to be taught. People in these organizations are usually going to be really happy with that, and they're going to be more than willing to go out of their way and kind of show you the ropes and introduce you to people and all that kind of stuff. And this is a great way to practice your shooting skills and get to know other people who are also like-minded. All right, so another one is first aid or EMT classes. You got Red Cross classes where you can take some basic first aid. You got the American Heart Association, EMT classes at your local community college, and then also check with your local fire departments and hospitals to see if they do any training as well. Those folks who are going to be in the class with you would be great connections to make, because they're obviously concerned about knowing first aid and medical and all that kind of stuff, and so they may have a propensity towards prepping. All right, churches are another great place. Home Bible study groups are probably the best ones, because you get to know people at a really, level, a little close, intimate level. If faith is not your thing, then we can just skip this slide and move to the next one. But I would suggest going to your church if you're already a member of a church, and you're like, there's a lot of people in my church that I think would be good, but I just don't know how to ask people to get into it and that kind of thing. I'd go and talk to your pastor and say, hey, I'd like to lead a small group in disaster preparedness. And then you could take, if you didn't want to make the curriculum and stuff, you could take these lessons that we're talking about here and just use those as handouts to go through and do a few different weeks, worth of disaster preparedness stuff. And so I think that would be a real great way to get to know people. And if you're not a member of a church, but you'd like to get involved with a church that has a tendency to gravitate towards prepping, I would take a look at like the Pentecostal or Assembly of God churches, or a Mormon church, the Church of Latter-day Saints. I think I misspelled latter there. I'll have to fix that. But essentially, you're looking for churches that tend to focus more on end times kind of prophecies and things like that. And those are probably going to give you a higher degree of preppers involved. So then we've got fraternal groups, like the Loyal Order of the Moose, or the Benevolent and Protective Order of Elks, the Rotary Club International, the Lions Club, and the Independent Order of Oddfellows. This is just some examples. There's lots of different ones out there. I thought the Independent Order of Oddfellows was kind of funny. I'd never heard of them. But these groups are groups that like to go out and help people. And a lot of people in these groups are already into self-reliance. They've got their stuff squared away, and they're trying to help other people through charities and different things like that. And they also have a lot of events where they'll do like charity events. Maybe you'll have like a chili dinner or a taco dinner or something along those lines. And people who come, will come and support these organizations, and they'll have the dinner there. And it's just a way to get out and meet people and talk about, different things and different activities that you're involved in. And that's going to give you a clue, hey, this guy might be a prepper, and that kind of thing. And so it's really all about getting out and talking to a lot of different people. Okay, search and rescue groups are another good one. Folks who are involved in search and rescue usually have a lot of experience in hiking and backpacking and, spending time out in the woods. They've got a lot of gear and all that kind of stuff. And so they're going to be kind of leaning towards that prepper mindset anyway. And it's also a great way for you to get out and do some exercise to help out, the community when people get lost. It gets you out and lets you kind of test your equipment and use radios, practice navigation, doing teamwork. You can also learn a lot about how tracking dogs work, and it's good exercise, like I said. So this is a great way to get out and meet folks, and a lot of these folks are folks who are also kind of prepper minded. 4-H groups. These are another great ones, especially if you've got kids. The 4-H is filled with preppers, okay? There's a website there. These are both great for adults and kids to learn a wide range of prepping skills. Chiefly animal husbandry is a big part of 4-H. Gardening is another one. Shooting, they've got, basic shooting classes for kids and stuff. But there's just a ton of different activities that 4-H does. And so you should definitely take a look at that and consider it, especially if you've been wanting to get into, raising animals of some sort. This is a really great way to kind of break into it. All right, so Boy Scouts, I think they may have declared bankruptcy recently, but I think they are still doing it. And it might not just be boys in the group anymore. I don't know. But anyhow, this is also another excellent opportunity for both the kids and parents to learn outdoor skills, wilderness survival, shooting, community service, and those kinds of things. And people, again, tend to be somewhat like-minded in the whole self-reliance, and maybe they were raised as country kids or whatever, and they want their kids to have more experiences, even though they're living in the city and stuff. And so this might be a good way. And earning an Eagle Scout designation is also still looked upon favorably on resumes. So that is a good thing, too, for kids. All right, so the next one is volunteer fireman. Becoming a volunteer fireman is a great way to not only learn firefighting skills, but also to get all kinds of great training in first aid. You probably would even get EMT certified, and learn a lot of advanced first aid stuff. So I think this is great, and you'll get an opportunity to become friends with the local firefighters who are also very frequently involved into preparedness as well. So just a great way to get inroads into the community and to give back a little bit as well. All right, so the next one is Geo-Caching. This is a pretty cool thing. You can download an app on your phone for free, and they do have different paid levels and stuff like that, but you can do this geocaching, and basically what you do is you go out and it's like a treasure hunt, really, and you use your navigation skills and GPS coordinates and the descriptions and hints that are left, and you have to find these little items that are left. And then, you take an item and then you leave an item. It's kind of like a little treasure hunt, And then you can also sign little logs and those kinds of things. And you could even put messages in there, like, into the little containers and stuff to try to, as a way to meet people. And you can send people messages and stuff like that back and forth. So it's just an interesting little community. There's not necessarily any guarantee that the people you're doing it with are going to be preppers, but they're going to be people who like to get out and move around and do stuff, and be outside and all that. So they probably have a tendency towards self-reliance. So the next one is ham radio clubs. This is a great way to get involved with the ham radio community, get your license, and to learn, who are the other ham operators in the area. And many of ham operators are also into preparedness. Specifically, if you want to get a little bit more into the emergency service, you can go to this usraces.org, the Radio Amateur Civil Emergency Service. And basically, in a nutshell, what this is you can kind of become a volunteer radio operator to work in emergency times. So that's kind of cool, and that's actually a government-sponsored program as well, if I'm not mistaken. So the next thing is a reserve police officer. To become a reserve police officer yourself, you should probably just contact your local department and find out what their requirements are, because each state and locality is probably going to differ. I left a link here to a policeone.com article that talks a little bit about police jobs and careers and how to become a reserve police officer. And so you could check that out if that was something you're interested in. It doesn't take up a whole lot of time. You get a lot of good training and that kind of thing. And it also plugs you into your local community, your local law enforcement community and first responder community, so that you know what's going on when emergencies are taking place. And it's a really big peace of mind. But believe it or not, a lot of cops are also preppers. So that is one thing too. Then we've got, if that's a little too much, then you've got the Neighborhood Watch. There is a National Neighborhood Watch, and they've got their website there. They're a division of the National Sheriff's Association. And so if you don't have a Neighborhood Watch in your area, maybe you could contact these guys and take a look at the manual. I'll give you a link to the manual here, and start one for your community. And then the people that you recruit into the Neighborhood Watch are also going to be potentially great members for a group. All right, so the next one is veterans groups. You've got things like the Veterans of Foreign Wars, the VFW, the American Legion, AMVETS, Disabled American Veterans. And I put a list down here at the bottom of just a whole bunch of veteran and military service organizations that are basically recognized by the VA. And so these are great ways to find people. And, you can become members of them, and you can also, even if you didn't want to become a member, or if you hadn't served yourself and you can't become a member, you can still go to their charity benefits. You can go to their events that they have, and you can support them and meet the vets that are there. And those could make, good potential members of your group as well, because they may have had a lot of training in different, skills and areas that could be useful to you. All right, so the next one is militias. With militias, I'm just going to say be real careful about the militias you get involved with. You don't want to get involved with any kind of militia that has any sort of racism or any talk about violent overthrow of the government or anything like that, because if they are espousing those kinds of ideas, they're probably going to be in jail before too long. So you don't want to get caught up in any of that stuff. But if they're good militias, then check them out, and see about, joining them and stuff if it's something that you're interested in. This is kind of a controversial one. I did a video on this talking about 10 tips for new militias. I put the link right here so you guys can check that out. I highly recommend looking at that and following those 10 pieces of advice. Then I've also got a list of known militias from Wikipedia and the U.S. National Militia Directory, and that's at constitution.org. But there's a limited number of links there, so you just have to check. It's not going to have everything there. Anyway, the next one is farmers and ranchers. So farmers and ranchers a lot of them are preppers, and they're also very into self-reliance lifestyle. And this is, going to require you to get out and speak with some of your local farmers and ranchers in your area. There are a couple of, farmer associations and cattlemen associations and those kinds of things. But ultimately, what I would recommend with this is just going out and talking with people and seeing, hey, if you guys ever need a hand during harvest, or during some busy season, maybe branding cattle or something along those lines, give me a call. I'd love to help you. I won't charge anything. I'd just love to come out and see how things work and all that kind of stuff. I've always been interested in agriculture, and those kind of things. And you'd be surprised. Sometimes farmers need help. Sometimes during harvest and stuff, they'll hire guys to come out and help for just a couple weeks at a time or a couple months at a time or whatever, depending on the thing. And so this could be a great way to get plugged in with that community. And these guys know everybody. I mean, they know everybody, especially in rural counties, rural areas and stuff like that. They're really good people to have on your side, and good people to know when it comes to, from a prepping perspective. Okay, and they also own a lot of land. So the next one is Reserve and National Guard members. If you wanted to become a reserve or National Guard member, you could do that. The cool part about this is it doesn't take up very much time. It gives you a lot of great training that you can go through, and you can become. Oh, it looks like I got a link wrong here. I'm going to have to fix that too. And so anyway, you get a lot of good training. You get a lot of, specific military style training, tactical training, all those kinds of things, depending on what your MOS is. Now the downside is you may have to deploy and those kind of things, but it's also got a lot of great benefits, a lot of great health benefits, VA home loan, all these different things. So there's definitely some positive sides to that, and you get introduced to a whole bunch of people who live in the area who are potentially great members of a group. All right, so the next one is local sheriff's office. Now, in larger counties, the sheriffs are not going to likely have time to meet with citizens unless you're at some kind of an event or a fundraiser. And that might be one way that you could get in to talk to them, but generally speaking, they're going to be pretty busy in them large populated counties. But most county sheriff's office do have a reserve deputy program, very similar to like the reserve police officer program that I was talking about earlier. In smaller and more rural counties, even if they don't have a reserve program, you can still go in, talk with them about informally putting together a group of folks that could be relied upon in an emergency. Basically, let's say if you live, in a hurricane area or something like that, and you could say, hey, I could, I've got 5 buddies, that we'd be willing to come and help direct traffic or something like that during, a hurricane or whatever the case may be, or just to respond, during disaster. And so that's one potential thing. And you can also check into the CERT, the Citizen Emergency Response Team, become a member of those teams, and that'll also plug you into that local kind of disaster response community as well. I probably should have had a slide for that one. Okay, trail hikers. So if you like to get out and go hiking, you can join these hiking groups, and they will tell you about different times and locations, different trails, and all that kind of stuff. And sometimes you can meet other hikers that are out there, and obviously they have a propensity towards knowing navigation, how to camp, and they like being outside and all that kind of stuff. So that could be another potential way. And just try to go to the meetups, go to the the groups and the functions that they have, and you'll be able to meet these people. All right, so the next one is camping associations. There are, let's see, the third link on the slide here, hikingandbackpacking.com. There was a whole list of different kinds of camping organizations for people who like to get out and go backpacking, out into the rural areas. If that's not your thing and you've got an RV, you can also do the National Association of RV Parks and Campgrounds. And then for kids, like for summer camps and stuff like that, you can go to the American Camping Association. So that's just some other potentials. And then last but not least, we've got hunting organizations. These are also a great way to meet different people who like to get out and go hunting, who are into firearms and self-reliance and those kinds of things. So you can join, groups like Whitetails Unlimited, the Quality Deer Management Association, the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, National Wildlife Turkey Foundation, Ducks Unlimited, Pheasants Forever. The list goes on. There's lots of different groups like this. And what these groups do is they try to raise money through charity events and things like that to support the habitat and the lifestyle. And if you go to those events, support those causes and those kind of things, you can get plugged into those communities and meet those people, meet a lot of people that are involved in that. It's a great way to make friends and potential, group members. All right, so the last one, I left this last on the list because this is really probably the least desirable, to be honest with you. And you really have to be careful and practice a lot of OPSEC. You've got to really vet the people that you're meeting and make sure that you can trust them before you really kind of bring them in. And so some of these things are like meetup.com. They have different meetup groups where people will meet and stuff. My experience with meetup was not that great. I did meet probably 5 or 6, pretty solid preppers through there. The thing is that if you had a group, let's say of 60 people at any given meetup, you'll probably have 5 people show up. A lot of people are just kind of online only. They don't like actually doing the meetups, which is the purpose of meetup.com. But anyway, that's my experience. Craigslist is another potential option. Be real careful here. Lots of scammers out there. Definitely practice good security principles and those kinds of things with that. Same thing with Facebook groups. Potential places to meet people that live in your areas, but just be careful. And the next thing is AmericanPreppersNetwork.com. Not super familiar with this organization, but I understand that it is a place that's supposed to be designed to get preppers kind of to meet up and whatnot. So anyhow, that is that. 25 minutes. Tried to kind of cruise through that pretty quick, but you guys can download this lesson. You can check out those links, and I would just encourage you, if you're having a hard time finding group members, get involved in maybe 2-3 of these organizations. You don't got to do a whole lot. Maybe you only go out and do a shoot, maybe at one of the shooting organizations every other month. Maybe if you don't have a community garden in your area, you get involved in the gardening club and you try to start a community garden in your community, or something along those lines. Just do a couple of different things. Don't overwhelm yourself, but get involved in a few different activities, and you get out there and start meeting people, and you will find people for your group. Anyhow, guys, I hope this has been helpful. If you've got any questions or any comments, please put them in the comments below or shoot me an email to AmericanPreppingAcademy@protonmail.com. Thanks, and we'll see you on another video here shortly.